For those of you who don't know, this is the Pokemon, is what I call him, Stephen Dollins. He talked about Pokemon a while back and claimed to be like a high priest in the Church of Satan and all kinds of other stuff. I talked about the whole video on my Unfiltered channel, if you want to watch it, Owen Unfiltered. But I want to zero in on the Pokemon stuff. And there's another guy named Phil Arms who's talked about this exact subject.
Because it's important for the church to deal with issues as they come to the forefront in society. I said, son, what is that one morning? He said, that's Pokemon. Son, I found out that Pokemon means pocket monster.
So anyway, there's that. And then there's his take on dancing.
And its sociological as well as physiological effect. And I discovered some alarming truths that have changed thousands and thousands of lives. That series contains it. You ought to get it if you don't have it. I believe it ought to be in every home and every church in America.
I've tried to get the series he's talking about. The phone number doesn't exist anymore. You know what? While I'm thinking about it, I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a letter to this guy since it's on my mind. Dear Pastor Arms, I really appreciate your takedown of Pokemon a few years ago, and I like your position on dancing. I would really appreciate it if you could send a copy of those VHS or DVDs. It would mean the world to me, as I'm also a pastor and the Pokemon craze has taken over my church. Thanks so much for the consideration, Owen Morgan. Okay, now, here's the next step. While I go through this, we're going to listen to him talk about this, and I'm going to get out an envelope. I'm going to write his name on it. I'm going to write a check. I'm going to stick the check in, and I'm going to see if he will send a copy for me.
Alarming truths that have changed thousands and thousands of lives. That series contains it. You ought to get it if you don't have it. I believe it ought to be in every home and every church in America. They ought to hear this tape because it will help you understand what's going on beyond the surface. And we talked about that. We talked about the anesthetic effect that the hyper overstimulation of the body's glandular functions undergo when they are submitted to certain types of activity and certain types of music. In fact, this secular article out of the Houston Post came out the other day called, it was entitled, Lambada called Threat to Health. Lambada is the latest dance.
Just for the record, while I'm getting this envelope out with these stamps, let me just show you what the Lambada dance is, okay? So that we stop the fear-mongering. Let's just figure it out. Let's see what we got going on here. Mom's dance is what it's called, okay? So this is the Lambada dance right here. Yo, satanic. Super satanic, this Lambada dance. You can just feel the Satanism dripping off of these people. Wrong, guys. Need to do something about the Lambada dance at this yoga class. We, as a society, cannot put up with this Lambada dance, okay? Unacceptable. In front of Wuno Pito? That's like my favorite place to eat, okay? You can't just do that in front of Wuno Pito. Bandar Udara? No, Udara? Bandar Udara Wuno Pito? You can't just do that, okay? Now I can't even eat there anymore. Anyway, there you go. There is our Lambada dance that this guy is screeching about at the top of his lungs like a screech owl. Now, while I fill out this envelope with his address, let's continue listening to him complain about dancing.
And its sociological as well as physiological effect. And I discovered some alarming truths that have changed thousands and thousands of lives. That series contains it. You ought to get it if you don't have it. I believe it ought to be in every home and every church in America. They ought to hear this tape because it will help you understand what's going on beyond the surface. And we talked about that. We talked about the anesthetic effect that the hyper overstimulation of the body's glandular functions undergo when they are submitted to certain types of activity and certain types of music. In fact,
that sounds serious. That's real. The body undergoes certain glandular changes and modifications after listening to certain types of music and doing certain dances. Oh boy. This sounds like Jehovah's Witnesses' take on dancing. Hey, let me pull up my book. I wrote about it in my book. OwenMorgan.com/book if you're curious, by the way. But yeah, here it is. All right, here we go. So just from my book, I'm reading like about the dancing and how Jehovah's Witnesses felt about it. At the same time as Phil Arms, by the way. Dancing back then was the wokeism of its time, or the DEI, or the whatever, you know. Here's a quote from July 1st, 1962 Watchtower. Quote, "Many of the news reports will likely have a few words about the origin of a new dance, and this is true of the twist. Time magazine, for instance, commented, 'The twist is at first an innocent enough dance. It's been largely discarded in favor of such refinements as the roach and the fly.'" Knowing Jehovah's Witnesses, they put those names in there on purpose. I don't know of any dance named the roach or the fly. But the point is to make it seem disgusting to you. Dancing is disgusting. Trying to link those two words in your head. But the youngsters at a certain New York nightclub have revived the twist and parodied it into a replica of some ancient tribal puberty rite. The dancers scarcely ever touch each other or move either feet. Everything else, however, moves. The upper body sways forward and backward, and the hips and shoulders twirl erotically, while the arms thrust in, out, up, and down. Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower, July 1st, 1962, pages 409 to 414. So anyway, yeah, later in the article, they demonized the twist specifically. In this example, we've found that the dance craze mainly involves bodily gyrations. Boy, that's a scary word, gyration. Bodily gyrations. I know, I'm sorry for traumatizing you with that word. And that the words used to describe them are frantic, sensual, and erotic. You've also learned what kind of person developed the dance. Tribal puberty rites, of course. And that it's basically an imitation of some pagan tribe's dance, involving gestures of a sexually suggestive nature. That was the, what's the word I'm looking for here? That was kind of the sentiment, the feel around the time about dancing. Young people were doing it, and that was absolutely unacceptable. See, there's something called the euphemism treadmill in society. Euphemisms apply to words specifically, but it doesn't just have to apply to words necessarily. The euphemism treadmill, in the context of words specifically, refers to how certain words become really offensive and are just not used anymore by people because they're so offensive. Like the N-word, for example. And they're deprecated until they're just like, we don't, no one ever uses them anymore. No one ever talks about them or hears about the words or anything, and we just move on. Good example is the word gongoozler from the 1920s. Yeah, that one is from the 1920s. Gongoozler. Or the term digging it. It's not offensive. It's just like not used. I'm digging it, That's from the 1970s. Nobody says that anymore. Nobody. So anyway, the point that I'm getting to is that applies to more than just the euphemism treadmill, more than just words. People get bent out of shape about actions, and then they move on to something new. They get bent out of shape about dancing, and then they just suddenly stop caring, like nobody gives a shit. And that's where we are now. The not give a shit mode. It's completely irrelevant to everybody around us. Like, everyone recognizes dancing is not like causing, I don't know, some evil tribal puberty rite to be revived and then Satan comes along. None of that is true. It was all made up all along. So all the way back then, the fear-mongering campaign was dancing, and it's just kind of been deprecated today. These people are a joke.
This secular article out of the Houston Post.
Secular article?
Came out the other day called, it was entitled, Lambada Called Threat to Health.
Yeah, so I think we played the Lambada dance, right? a second ago. And it's just some stupid dance that like yoga teachers do.
That is the latest dance. It is a sexual dance. It's nothing but having sex with your clothes on to me.
It's not. It's just people dancing, bro. Come on. Is that what you think that's what sex is? Really? You know, that tells me something about you more than anything. That's sad. I feel bad for this dude's wife, honestly.
Out of the Houston Chronicle, and it says Taiwan doctors are warning trendy young people to think twice before joining the lambada dance craze.
Taiwan doctors. You're noticing the weasel words in this? He's not telling us which Taiwan doctors. He's not telling us what qualifications they have to make those claims. Not giving us any information about that. He's just saying Taiwan doctors. That is a wild name for a guy, right? First name Taiwan, last name doctors. Makes him really hard to track down, though.
Which promoters are advertising as the forbidden dance. The United Daily News on Thursday said doctors had found the lambada's sinuous Brazilian rhythms and close body contact could cause, quote, excessive blood flow in males, which could very possibly cause them to become dysfunctional.
Except, you know what? Yeah, I've heard that. Blood flow in males makes them become dysfunctional. Yeah, you don't want any blood flow. You want zero, ideally. Just you. In fact, you know what? In an ideal world, that we wouldn't even have a heart. Our blood would be completely stationary. If I could have it my way, everyone's heart would be stationary and there'd be zero blood flow so that we wouldn't be dysfunctional at all.
Doctors have also warned young women about the dance, saying it leads to abnormal sexual relations between dancing partners and should not be attempted without prior counseling.
Without prior counseling? Oh boy, this is serious, huh? I already hear what he's about to say. And this is the secular media saying this. Yeah, I bet. It totally. It was the New York Times announcing all this stuff, right? And you're just reporting what they're reporting. It's funny. I've never known like the New York Times to use weasel words, for example. Like real reporters don't use weasel words. They protect their sources from time to time, but they will explain who they is before they say the word they. They'll explain they refers to like the source that I'm talking to or whatever.
Again, secular analysis saying these things.
How did I guess?
The lambada has hit Taiwan after sweeping Europe and the United States. 3 different lambada movies are now showing in Taiwan cinemas.
Lambada movies? What movie could possibly be made about a dance, aside from Dirty Dancing? The timeless movie Dirty Dancing, where that 30-year-old guy got with like a 16-year-old and everybody was just okay with it.
So even the world understands that there are sexual appetites and drives that are
even the world
stirred when you involve yourselves in certain things. We have discussed basically the music, we've discussed the message and the philosophy, and we did that in that Rock of Ages series as well as part 1 of the...
God, I wish I could get my hands on this stuff. Rock of Ages. I want to know what he thinks about heavy metal. I'm so desperate. How do I give this guy my money? I want him to have my money, please. Take my money and give me your Rock of Ages series. I'm begging you. I think the dude's dead, sadly. Just such a shame.
Series that we're talking about today, and I pray that you get it if you hadn't gotten it. You know,
I'm trying.
The most important principle that I could share with you today as a Christian, and I realize some of you aren't, and so you can just, check out, because what I'm about to tell you doesn't do a bit of good unless you know the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. But if you're going to live for Jesus, and if you're going to be an overcomer, Paul tells you that you have got to gird up the loins of your mind.
Gird up, boys. Gird up your loins and fill your horns with oil.
Now, what that means is you must place guards about your mind. You must aggressively set up gates about what you allow to touch your mind and your emotions. The Bible says you must guard your mind. We concluded in the...
Okay, I don't have any idea what he's even referring to here, but okay, fine.
First part of this series that dancing, and if you weren't here for the first part, just take my word for it, or get the tape 1, that dancing
I'm trying, man.
along with any other social activity in and of itself is not amoral. In other words, it's not neutral. Why? Because everything is spirit. Say that. Everything is spirit. You must learn that.
So literally every single thing that I ever do ever is somehow linked to Jesus or Satan, one or the other. And if I'm not doing something Jesus related, then I'm doing something Satan related by default. Okay?
Everything going on in this world is, in fact, the closer we get to the last days, the more spiritual everything is becoming. And this dancing, this social activity we discovered, had behind it demonic powers that were designed for the purpose of seduction and to deaden spiritual awareness. I read an article called Dance is America's #1 amusement, and it listed about how many of the percentage of young people, singles, and adults were involved. It was phenomenal. I didn't keep the article, but the vast majority of...
I didn't keep the article, he says. Well, that's convenient, isn't it? Wow. How super ultra convenient is that he didn't keep the article as proof?
Americans are, at some way, in somehow, in some fashion, have their lives tied to the social activity of dancing. And it does not leave them unaffected. It is an activity that men use, that scripture said, or that article said, for amusement. It's interesting to know.
Wow, amusement is absolutely unacceptable. We can't have that. That's bad. Amusement? No way.
That the Greek word for think is to muse. Amuse means not to think. And we live in a society that does not want to think.
So being amused is bad, is what he just said. The Greek word muse means to think. I don't even know if that's true, but let's just take him at his word for a second. Greek word muse means to think. The word amuse, with the prefix a, which the prefix a means not or without. So if you add the prefix a to the word muse, amuse, then it means to not think. Okay, I don't know if that's true. That sounds completely fabricated, but you know what? Okay, let's just take it. Sometimes people like to shut their brains off and not deal with anything. You ever consider that one? Never ever knock that one around the old noggin, Phil? No, he doesn't care. He wants you to be a radical extremist in favor of Jesus.
We live in a society that does not want to engage our brains. We live in an age of television and computers and stereos. And we don't want to make our minds activated, because I'm afraid when some of us start thinking, we get fearful and anxious and frustrated with what we're thinking about. Because most don't have solutions. They can't come to proper conclusions in their life. So we don't want to think. In fact, I was researching something not long ago when I was in a library, and the librarian recognized me and began to talk to me. She said, I've been a teacher for X number of years. She said, we have just discovered that the average attention span of the average young person is now 4 to 5 minutes.
Okay, go on.
And so they're having to redo their curriculums in the public schools to engage the minds of children for that time span and then give them a kind of a break and go at it again.
Wow, that's messed up that we would have to change to adapt to society, huh? Wow, the gall. I want things to be completely the same 100% of the time. Aside from that, this is just made up. This is fabricated. This is not true. The attention span was never 4 to 5 minutes. The attention span is roughly the same as it's always been, which is about 17 seconds. Always. That's just how human brains have always worked. But okay. Literally never a time when our attention span was 4 to 5 minutes.
If a person is eager to walk with God, you must not ask the question, what's wrong with dancing? Or what's wrong with smoking? Or what's wrong with cussing? Or what's wrong with premarital sex? If that's the way you ask your question, you're asking it the wrong way. You need to ask yourself, when you come to a decision about what you're going to involve yourself in, is what is right with this?
There you go. And that's really the crux of the argument here, isn't it? He wants people to feel that there's nothing you should do ever unless it is specifically to serve God, period. No questions asked. Do you get the idea about his dancing craze? Let's listen to his little Pokemon video here. It's short.
Pocket monster. Pokemon, plural, are incredible creatures that share the world with humans. Each has his own fighting abilities. Some grow and evolve into even more powerful creatures.
I'm waiting for the bad part here.
The children are developing relationships with all these Pokemon creatures.
Well, that's not exactly right, but you know what? I'm waiting for the bad part here.
Reclusive, power-filled monsters. But why should they carry these monsters in their pocket? They say the Pokemon whole effort is to train children how to become the #1 Pokemon.
No, you misunderstood, Phil. Probably because you didn't read the fucking article. The person who's into Pokemon, his whole goal is to become a Pokemon master by catching them all, by getting them all, right? And by showing them love and appreciation.
You follow it through the New Age teaching, you find out the masters are those who...
Wait, why are we following it to the New Age teaching? What does this have to do with New Age anything? I'm lost.
Take control of spirits in the dark realm, and they tell those spirits what to do. The child at some point becomes capable of taking these powers and channeling them through their mind, through their arms, or through their power sources.
Okay, and do you have any evidence of this? Has this literally ever happened in the history of ever? Has a kid ever shot a flame through his arm at an enemy or whatever? Or are you just completely fabricating this out of the ether? Because I'm going to guess it's the latter.
Their power sources, of course, are many of the symbols that they pick up from the Pokemon paraphernalia. So Pokemon is a game that teaches children how to enter into the world of witchcraft, how to cast spells, how to use psychic phenomena, how to put to work supernatural powers against their enemies, how to fantasy role play. Pokemon world is a world of the demonic.
How to fantasy role play. Can you imagine? My God, our children learning this.
Of the satanic. But while you might not take it quite seriously...
No, I don't.
I assure you that demons take it quite seriously. Satan takes it quite seriously. Your children need to know there's a devil, and he hates them, and he wants to ruin their life. There was even a couple of reports where children had been stabbed by other children over Pokemon cards.
Is there a story of that happening? Where? Where did this happen, Phil? Tell me where this happened and who did it exactly. Where can I find information on this? Because for some reason, I'm prone not to believe a word out of your mouth.
Dungeons and Dragons game of the 80s where children, young people even ended up killing themselves because it was a role-playing game. Our kids are going out in gangs on the streets, and they're so used to killing each other in their fantasy games and on their video screens. And
like in Dungeons and Dragons. People are so used to killing each other in Dungeons and Dragons.
Blowing each other away and blowing each other up, that when they walk down the streets and they pull out their .45 and they pump some friend full of bullets, they kind of think in the back of their mind, well, they're just going to, we'll turn off the machine and they'll get up and they'll be there tomorrow and I'll shoot them again. It's just a game.
Okay, that's never happened literally in the history of ever. I have no idea what he's going on about. But again, this is demonizing Pokemon. This is part of the Pokemon craze of the 1990s. This is the fear that pastors built into people. You know, society wants to make progress. They want to have fun. They want to create something new and novel and interesting. They want to entertain people. They want to whatever. There is the church every time standing in the way, finding some way to put a stop to it, to make this more difficult, to make it miserable. It's absurd. It's a joke. These people are jokes. Does Phil Arms realize that he is a joke of a human being? Did he realize before, I assume, he died? Or does he just, not even know? Is he unaware of the fact that people view him that way? I have to wonder.
I respond, Russian roulette is just a game.
Russian roulette is the same as Pokemon.
But they're so into this make-believe world that they can't distinguish between fantasy and real. Listen, I can't stress this enough.
Stress it, Phil.
That everything in life is real. Everything.
Well, no, it's not, actually. There are some things that are on a video screen. Phil Arms has been dead for who knows how long, and he's on a video screen. He's not real. What are you talking about?
I assure you, what your children watch, what you watch, affects you radically.
That's true to some degree. Some things affect people deeply. It affects them negatively, at certain ages at the very least. But it's Pokemon, okay? It is the most vanilla game imaginable. All right, well, you know what? I'm not going to send him money, but I am going to write a letter. That's how preachers back then did it, right? Oh my God, my filing cabinet is becoming unwieldy. Okay, I got a letter thingamajigger here. And I know preachers back then really appreciated handwritten letters, right? So we'll give him what he's looking for. A handwritten letter requesting his Rock of Ages series and maybe his Pokemon series and definitely his dancing series. Dear Pastor Phil Arms, I saw one of your videos on... Oh, by the way, I'm writing in cursive, which makes it even, better for him. Videos on Pokemon in church today, and I was hoping you could tell me how to purchase your Rock of Ages and dancing series. Thanks so much for the consideration. Owen Morgan. Okay. Fold this puppy up. Looks like a second grader wrote it because I don't write very often. I usually type. I'm putting it in an envelope. Okay. Envelope is sealed. All right. Now, what's the address we got here? Phil Arms, Life Reach Ministries. Phil Arms, Life Reach Ministries. And that's 436 Carroll Road. 436 Carroll Road. And then we got Richmond, Texas. Richmond, Texas. 77469. I'll write my return address down now. I hate writing. I hate it with like nothing else. With a burning passion of 1,000 hot suns. All right. New York. New York. Now I'm going to put a stamp on this puppy. And I'm going to mail it out today with... Maybe you can't see. Can you see? I'm not sure. Yeah. I have a bunch of books and stuff behind me that I was working on, preparing to ship. I put labels on all of them and everything. Got to bring them to the post office now, drop them in the drop box so that they'll ship. Okay, we got a stamp. Oh my God, everything's falling apart. I'm shipping that puppy out with everything else. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a response from Mr. Phil Arms. I would be so happy if we got if we got a copy of Rock of Ages and or the dancing, fear-mongering nonsense, or the Pokemon stuff. Oh my God, I want this stuff in its entirety. I want it so badly.
Some of you can't go to heaven. What you do with your brain has a direct correlation to where you're going to spend eternity. The media in this country, whether it's, rock music, whether it's the perverted primetime programming and cable programming and the movie industry, whatever. And now the internet.
The internet. Can you imagine the gall of the internet existing? These people need help for real. Tell me what you think about this in the comments, and cross your fingers that I get a response. If I get a response, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be playing it on air, talking about it. Even a response, even if it's not Rock of Ages or, Dirty Dancing. I don't know what he calls his stupid dancing series or whatever. But yeah, tell me what you think in the comments. This is fascinating to me. This is Stephen Dollins. He's who I call the Pokemon. And he bought right into the Pokemon craze back in the 90s. Listen to what he has to say here.
Pokemon, Pocket Monster, the spiral. And it stands for what? Male fertility. It's supposed to be able to mesmerize and hypnotize its enemies. This character over here is called Mewtwo. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers. It means Hail Satan.
I love it, dude. I love everything about it. It's so ridiculously stupid. It makes me laugh so hard. That's the level that we're dealing with back then, right? Back in the 90s. These pastors have not gotten less ridiculous. Trust me. They're just as ridiculous, if not more so, about different subjects. In 30 years, we're going to look back at this era in time right now and think to ourselves, they really said that shit about trans people? Oh my God, that's crazy.
Cute little one. Everybody go. Oh, come on. His tail. It's a lightning bolt. And it's a satanic Z.
I tried the phone number. It seems to be out of service. I really hope that he still has the same address. You know what? Just for good measures, though, let me just double check the phone number he scrolled by. What was it? It was 1-800. Let's call it together. 1-800-829-WORD. WORD. All right, let's call together.
This call may be recorded for quality assurance. We have a special promotion today for select callers. If you are over 50, please press 1 now. If not, press 2. Hello and congratulations. Just for calling today, we're offering you a free medical alert device.
Oh my God, dude, come on.
In case of an emergency. These devices are often very expensive, so press 1 now to take advantage of this special offer and enjoy the peace of mind that comes with 24/7 support. Don't wait. Press 1 now or remain on the line for additional options. Again, press 1 now to claim your free device.
Is this like an old person medical thing that we're dealing with? Is that what this is?
If you are currently enrolled in Medicare Part A and Part B and want to review your plan options, which may include additional plan benefits, and check your eligibility for the enrollment period, please press 1 now.
Maybe if I hit 0. Just let me talk to 0.
Thank you for calling. This is Jessica on a recorded line. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Great. So with our promotion today, you actually have the opportunity to receive a free medical alert device. So congratulations. It's that little button you wear around your neck that you press in case of an emergency or even a fall. Now, when you're participating in our monitoring program, you actually can get your medical alert absolutely free. So oftentimes it's really expensive to buy a device like this. So we make it really simple for you. We pay for the entire unit itself and then ship it right to your house for free. And then,
She's literally saying nothing I didn't already hear.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let's go ahead and get you some more info on it, okay?
Oh, that sounds good, but that's okay. I don't need that. Actually, I was wondering, I saw this old, this sermon by Phil Arms, and this phone number came across the screen to order his series, and I was wondering if this is still the place I go to order his stuff.
I'm sorry, you've reached the Medical Alert Center.
Oh, my mistake.
Unfortunately, we're unable to assist you any further, but just for calling in today, you have the opportunity to receive a special gift. So just please stay on the line while I transfer your call.
Thanks. Okay, that was a waste of time. How can you possibly watch this and believe a word out of this guy's mouth? Honestly.